first 5 rounds, as we always discuss first. Again, if you are watching YouTube, you'll see now, if you're listening, that there's a YouTube, that little slideshow that we do have mentions a couple of the dot points that we will talk about and shows you the first 5 games. So for the Broncos, round 1 is the Roosters away. Round 2, the Raiders away. So they start 2 away games. Round 3 is the Cowboys at home. Round 4, the Dolphins at home. Away. And then round 5, the Tigers at home. What not a bad draw at all. Not a draw you go and complain about, I think, too much. I'm surprised they start the year with 2 away games. I thought being the Broncos would get at least a home game in there. But apart from that, I don't mind anything that screams out to you guys about the draw before we get into the players' side of things.
I've seen a lot of people hype up the Broncos start, to be honest with you, and a lot of people are very keen to get onto them. Again, I look at it and I'm a little bit mixed. Like, obviously, the Roosters, it could be a bit, could be either way, to be fair. It's round 1. Obviously, the Roosters got their own issues round 1, so it could go either here or there. Raiders, Cows, Dolphins, Tigers, like, it's all pretty favourable for them. But again, like, what do the Broncos do? You know what I mean? Like, you saw the struggles last year with them, and I suppose things can change, but yeah, I can see the appeal for sure with them, definitely. So if we're expecting them to bounce back and be a quality side again this year, it's definitely a nice start amongst some others.
To be fair, I actually think that that draw is incredibly good. And to add to that, the home game against the Cowboys is at Suncorp. The away game against the Dolphins is at Suncorp. The home game against the Tigers is at Suncorp. Round 6 is also at Suncorp against the Roosters again. And then they've got to go to New Zealand to play New Zealand in round 7.
That's
and then round 8, it's the Bulldogs at Suncorp. And then round 9, it's Magic Round, and guess where they're at Suncorp. So
wow, that's insane.
Yeah, so their draw is just it's amazing. It's fantastic for them. The Raiders, we know. I'll start with the Roosters. The Roosters are an unknown. We don't know what's going to happen, and I think they're going to be trying to figure it out round 1. So I reckon that's a gettable game for them. The Raiders, we know, are a young side. Anything could happen. We've got the Cowboys at home, and the Dolphins, we think, is going to be a big improvement. But still, it's at Suncorp. Like I don't think you could ask for a better draw for the Broncos, to be honest.
We will see as we dive into these players if this early draw that seems to look favourable plays into the minds of these Supercoach wizards that we've got live on air with us. Now let's get into the hookers straight away. So we've got a cheapie right there, bottom dollar, $1.98, Cameron Bukowski. I don't think there's 5 to choose on here, so unfortunately, I don't think Cameron will get a chance this year. Corey Pakes, $232K. Blake Moser, $312K. Tyson Smoothie, $369K. And Billy Walters, $389K, the most expensive one. There is a Moser question. Is he a play until Mam is back? So that's Mam is back around 10. So we basically get 9 weeks of Hunt in the halves. Blake Moser, by all reports, is training the absolute house down. Seems to be the front runner for this 9 jersey. Does that mean an 80-minute spot? I doubt it. I don't know if they'd throw him in an 80-minute role straight away, but I think it could mean add some decent minute slots. Jesse, what are you thinking here around? I guess Moser's the big talking point about these 5 choices because I don't know. I think, it's just his time. It has to be.
Yeah, it seems like it too. And you look at the ownerships, he's 14%. Everyone else is either 1 or 0. There's very little appeal with Broncos hookers in general, I think, especially when it's been Walters and Smoothie and Pakes and that stuff rotating. A lot of raps on Moser. Obviously, 312K is like really good pricing point. There's a few good like low 300 hookers at the moment. I really think he might be the most appealing one. He hasn't played too many games of the first grade, but like his 2024 stats in reserves, he played 13 games. He averaged 63.5 in 64 minutes, really. So he's a point-a-minute guy, pretty much. And then in the NRL games that he's played, he's basically a point-a-minute guy too, but only around that 30-point sort of game. So he's definitely got the upside to him, definitely more than the other guys do, because they've shown over the last couple of seasons they just kind of plod along in a way. So the appeal's definitely there, but it's a big watch. I think there's definitely value out of him, probably a good couple 100K potentially if he does get a good minute roll. Even if it's 60 minutes, it could be decent enough. But it just depends, really. There's a lot of ifs when it comes to these guys, and I really don't like ifs at hooker because it's already so ugly to begin with, and I don't want to have to deal with, having to deal with. It's like a Lussick from last year, or a Hands, or one of these guys that's going to split minutes. Maybe they need the full 60 to 80 to get actual points and appeal out of them. But yeah, I'll be keeping my eye on him for sure. And if it looks like he's going to get the starting 9 spot, there's probably a good chance I do start with him. It could be a good play long term. I think it's probably about due. Madge is in there now. They probably shake things up. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eye on him for sure.
Trav, Brisbane Hookers. Talk to us.
Yeah, no interest in any of them other than Moser. To be honest, in terms of Supercoach, Billy Walters obviously is the talk of the team. From I've spoken to a few Broncos fans over the last sort of 6 months about it, and they're very high on Billy Walters. But I just think that was because of his dad. I think there was a little bit of looking after there. I think it's just Moses' year. I think they're ready to go, and you're not going to label someone the next Cameron Smith and not play him. So I just think you're playing with fire when you put a label like that, and then just sit him on your bench or sit him in your resis again. The problem too, and we as we said, blending both of the podcasts together of what we had last night. But as we start to talk around players who have got serious talent, who are getting poached by other clubs, Mose is one of those guys. And almost every club in the competition, bar the Roosters now because they've just got Robson, bar the Sharks who are pretty happy with Brayley, probably bar the Bulldogs who are pretty happy with Marnie, bar the Storm who was ecstatic with Grant. Mose is probably going to be a pretty high price bloke. So he's got to play, right? He's got to play. And I think come round 10, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare in what the Broncos do. So I think they've got to play Moser. I think he's got to be there in the first 10. I think what he does in that first 10 is solidify his spot. And I reckon he's going to be I reckon he might even be a hold through Origin type guy. I think that's how good he's going to be. I'm really high on it. I have become more and more high as the hype over the last week, as Jesse said at the start of the pod. I'm flying in hype trains at the moment, and I've read lots of newspaper articles over the last week, being up here in Brisbane, about how good Mose is going and what I'm seeing. And I've caught that hype train, and I'm very keen on him.
Mr. Hype Man is back, everyone. He's keen and he's hyped. Any more from Trevor? I think it burst off the screen and we won't see him for a while. He's excited. It's great to see, but I echo probably both.
Friggin' footy to start.
100%.
That's right.
I've never been so keen, even though I hate trials. Just put a trial on, for goodness sake. Let's watch something. I'm warming more and more towards this Blake Moser situation. Definitely for mine, I don't think I'll hold him through Origin. As soon as Mam's back, I'm worried about how much Hunt will eat into that hooker role. I think that's where he will go back. But in saying that, with unfortunately how Adam Reynolds' body has been as of late, there's probably a high chance Ben Hunt will play a lot of halfback at this time throughout the year as well. So all of a sudden, Blake Moser could be their hooker for the whole 24 rounds. So keeping an eye on all that, and we will see. But yeah, for sure, very, very high at the moment on Blake Moser.
I just think with him, everything just plays in it really nicely for him. Like he's got 10 weeks. And Mam comes back in round 10. So if Mam comes back and they shift Hunt to the hooker spot, and if Mose has been dominating or playing really well or showing serious potential, Jesus, there's going to be an uproar if they do that. Moser will be on the way out, I reckon, if that happens. Yeah. So I reckon they'll have to fix that. So that I don't think that'll happen. So unless Moser just absolutely bombs out and shows that he's just not ready yet, like he's got the talent but just not ready yet, he's going to be there. They have to play him because otherwise they're going to lose him. So everything works out perfectly. They've got 10 weeks. They got no bye. They've got pretty much 75% of those games in the first 10 weeks at bloody Suncorp. It's a pretty decent draw other than the Magic round game that they've got to play against the Penrith. I mean, the Bulldogs will be tough, but that's in Suncorp as well on the back of, pretty limited travel other than obviously they've got to come back from Auckland then. Everything just screams out it's in the ducks are in a row for him. So, I just think get him now. His ownership needs to be a hell of a lot higher.
Yeah.
It'll go up a lot, I reckon.
Yeah. I think it will as well. Front row forwards, we've got young gun VJ Semu, 198k. Benjamin Takura, 232k. Starting to hear a bit of talk about him. A bit of the hype train is starting to come through. He looks like he should be getting a bench spot. Martin Tapau, 353k. Fletcher Baker, the Roosters signing from last year, who just has seemed to do absolutely nothing there and was a bit of a trap from last year if we go back on that talk. 355k. Xavier Wilson has quickly shut up this price point, 447k. Corey Jensen, 520k. And Payne Haas, 669k. The top dog, the big dog. Let's go. Obviously, Payne Haas, a huge talking point here. Trav, anyone else apart from Payne Haas? And if there isn't anyone else, just get straight into it to him.
No one. I mean, this is probably more Jesse's thing, but as far as just looking over that list, I don't really have any interest. I mean, I am probably going to watch, not closely, but have a bit of a think around what Takara does and what happens there. But there's just a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of changes happening and a few things moving around with Carrigan and Hetherington and all that sort of stuff. So just don't know if there's a spot and what's going to happen there. So, the real big one here is to talk about Hasta La Vista, baby, and see how he goes. 14% ownership really surprises me. 669k is not the top bracket. Like, it's high, but it's not that top bracket. In terms of what I want to pay, like you've got Tarpany, you've got AFB. I think those two there. I think Payne Haas, with the 14 games that he played last year, I think we're getting him underpriced. And there's some definite value that's going to happen with Payne Haas. Underpriced, yet he was with an average of 68.4. So we're essentially, we could be looking at getting Payne Haas at a really, really nice price. He's certainly a big watch and see for me. I am not super keen on paying up in the front row forward, though, at this point in time. So I need to sort of try and find some money, and money at the moment is being taken away from my front row forward. So I'm not really keen on buying him, but I'm definitely going to watch him with eagerness to hope that he bombs out so I can get him when he drops, if he can drop a bit of price. But at this point, I think he's good value.
Jesse? Payne Haas.
I agree. I don't think he's going to drop at all. I think this is pretty much the lowest we'll see Payne Haas. You got to think, like, last year he was playing basically on one leg, still averaged 69 almost. So injured quite a lot of the time, obviously 14 games. It was actually his lowest year basically ever in base for him. Based 49, but 65 with power. So, an average of 68, but 65 in power. So there's not really a lot else he's doing besides just workload and a lot of it. So 1.17 points per minute. It's good stats. It was quite down on what he's usually putting out. So there's definitely uptick there for him, providing he's fit and ready to go. And obviously all this talk about him and Carrigan being in the front row together. I don't see him really dropping at all. Like, I think he's just going to either hold steady or go up. It's a good price for him. Yeah, it's a good price. It's just a lot of money to spend in your front row, but I don't think you can do wrong by it, especially not. We've spoken about their run, how Madge really settles his front row, and him and Carrigan together in the fronts are going to be insane. Probably the best pair in the comp, really, when you think about it. But there's always good stability with Haas. I think I don't think you can really ever go wrong with him. But yeah, it's just a different mentality of the start of your team. Do you pay near 700k for a prop when you've got other options this year? Especially a lot of people are starting to spend big money in them and get away from those like mid 300-400k guys and actually spend up. He's the second dearest, I'm pretty sure, behind AFB. And I think he's going to outscore AFB. There's probably a good chance next to Terrell May. he's the highest scoring front rower again, like he usually would be. So I like him. I always am very keen to humour the idea of having him in my side. I didn't last year, but I think it's the first time I haven't, and mainly because of his body. But yeah, I like it. It's just a lot of money early days. Definitely build up for it, but I don't think you'll ever get him cheaper than this.
Yeah, sorry, I gave you a pretty shitty information when with the top price tiers. I actually thought Tarpany was a lot more expensive, which makes me more interested in him. But yeah, you're right. He's definitely the second most front row forward. So sorry for that.
Yeah, that's good.
The other thing is he's just come back off a surgery, which I think has him racing the clock to be fit for round 1 at the moment. So that might also be impacting why that number's 14%, whether some people might be surprised. I think it should be higher. I'm not too sure. I haven't once yet toyed with the idea of actually having him in my team yet. And I don't know why. If that's because there's Tino, there's May, then there's the right drop down to like your Horsburghs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I need to see it from him first. And I know that if that means I'm going to miss out on 3-4 weeks of him scoring well, I'm willing to wear that and then get him on. After coming off a year of 14 matches where he just did not seem fit almost once last year, to now be coming into another season off the back of a surgery, another one, and just been racing the clock. I don't want to hear him racing the clock again. Like, I'd rather hear he's getting rested, he's not getting rushed back. Let him chill for another 2 or 3 weeks. If it means he's back in round 3 or 4, but we get Payne Haas, like the Payne Haas, then I'm more keen for that. I'm a bit worried straight up hearing he's not 100%.
I don't know. Listening to what you just said then makes my mouth water even more. Like, you're talking last year about how he only played 14 games, he was injured, didn't do it, but he still freaking put 68.4 up. Yep. And you're telling me, and then you're saying that, like, that to me just excites me even more. And I'm like, oh man, the problem is, and the issue is that you can't have, you have to pay up somewhere around the 600 plus one spot in your 2RF. I think this year you've definitely got to have someone worth 600K in your halfback. And you definitely got to have 2 600 plus or 700 plus players in your fullback. And you're probably going to end up with at least 2 in your center wing. I just don't know if I can start with a 600 plus K guy, or 660 plus, because Terrell May's 590. But, I just can't have someone over 600K at this point in my front row forward just to start. And this is why I think TLT is going to be so important, which is why also we really need these mid ranges like your Horsburghs, like your Whites, like your Hunts to not dominate, but really push early so that we can time it nicely where Payne Haas gets rolling, AFB drops, Tarpany drops a little bit more, and then bang, it's just straight swap, sit and forget. Like that's what I'm sort of praying and hoping for, and I can't start with that just yet. But yeah, man, it makes me so much more keen listening to what we're saying now to get him. I'm not going to start with him because I can't pay that much to start with.
I'm shocked by that because for me, I just wouldn't want to toy with that in my team and have that sitting on my non-playing reserves 10 out of the 24 weeks, if that's what we're talking about for going off last year. Like, that's what I mean. I just want to see him come back and be fit, be Payne Haas and get through games solidly. And then I'm right on board. Trust me, I'm wanting to get on board. I just want to see him do it consistently.
I don't think there's really much to see. I think when he's just ready and he's going, it's Payne Haas. Like, there's nothing to worry about. It's like Cleary. Like, an injured Cleary is still better than 90% of the halves in the comp. Payne Haas injured is better than 99% of the front rowers in the comp. It's just the way that it is. He's the best there is. So, yeah, and he's still outgunned all of them. Like, AFB had to score
less than May,
10,
and you're probably going to get the same, if not better.
Oh no, that's what I mean. That's why May's near must-have territory. That's why that's why he's 50% owned, because he's got the upside of a Payne Haas. But that's the thing. You look at AFB. He's got to score 10 tries to just pip him. He didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like, Payne Haas doesn't have to do that. He gets 70 in base. So, like, if he can free his arm a little bit more and get some, more than 1.7 offloads a game, then there's more there. He got 4.8 tackle busts per game average.
Like, on a Broncos team that bombed out last year with all the things that happened. Like, now watch them, if they can click and see what happens, you can only imagine what Haas is going to do.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. His best years, 2023, he averaged 73.5. Base plus power was 70. 22 was a 62, also another injured year, 68 in 21, 75 in 2020, 78 in 2019. So, he has his down years and it's still better than the majority. So, I think when he's going and he's fit, you can't go wrong. It's one of the safest ways to put 650K because you're going to get at least 65, 70 points. It's like yo for your front row. So, you can't knock it, but again, it's front row, so it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
you gotta watch your budget. But
yeah.
yeah, he's the best. I love him. So
2RF. First up, Jet Bryce, 198K. Jack Jajeski, 232K. Goodness me, that name gets me every time. Jaden Hunt, 242K. Kobe Hetherington, 338K. Brendan Piacura, 402K. Jordan Ricky, 471. And Patrick Carrigan, 642, looking as chiseled as ever in the recent preseason picks the Broncos put up. Goodness me.
You love a chisel. You love a chisel body, don't you, Joe? Gee,
honestly,
every pod he talks around one chisel, man.
Fake. He's AI. I'm sorry, but he's the definition of AI. He can't be real. That's fair.
Carrigan, yeah, he's everyone's dream, really, isn't he? Gets that hair flowing, everything. Got his nails painted.
I've got to be professional. Sorry. The question is up. We've got to tackle those first. Carrigan, there's rumors of a new position. So what has been around the traps is that he's getting moved to prop. That means Hetherington will then move into that lock position as well. So to be honest, it's probably a question to answer for both of those players. Does it change how you're thinking about Carrigan, Jesse? And then after that, Hetherington at 338K. I'm almost more excited about talking about Hetherington, to be honest, because I think Carrigan's Carrigan. He's going to get through what he does. I don't think the new position changes it too much. If anything, it probably means he gets a bit more of a stint off the field, just playing in that prop forward. I'm not too sure, but and he's with Payne Haas as well. Don't forget, they can't just both play 80 minutes every week and pray that they get the Broncos through every game. Kobe Hetherington's really looking nice.
Yeah, it kind of makes them both a little bit appealing, to be fair. And obviously, what I'm hoping to see is Pat Carrigan get dual front row before the season starts. And then I will be pretty keen, to be honest with you, because I haven't really ever been too fond of him in the second row. I don't see the upside for him. I think he's very consistent in his mid-60s. But again, you want that ceiling, you want that height for it. But in the front row, I'll take that every day of the week. Yeah, Carrigan's animal, man. He's played one game at prop. I'm digging some stats up, and he's played one game. He scored 92 points. Huge. 72 in base and power. He got a try assist, a tackle bust, 2 offloads. He averaged 64 minutes. He got 64 minutes that game, and he scored 92 points. So he's priced off at 900K. If you're going off that game reference, it's massive. Yeah, it's really good. So I like it. He's super consistent though. Like you look at all of his games, he's always going to pump out 65, 70 minutes. I don't know how that really changes when he goes into the front row. He probably drops down a smidge, but I don't think they really need to worry too much. They know he can do it in the middle, like he's a lock. He can definitely play prop for 60, 70 minutes if they have to. So it's no biggie for them. Yeah, and it's Carrigan. Like there's really nothing really to go past. It's very consistent. It's like Haas, so I can see why they're going to be doing that move. But it does open the doors to Hetherington. He's not been a really big points per minute guy ever. And that's going off, mid-30s, 40 minutes here and there. So if he can keep a 0.7, 0.8, which is pretty much where he'll sort of chip in at, there's definitely value there for him, but it depends on how many minutes he gets. And if not, does Carrigan rotate with him? Does Hetherington get a stint off and then Carrigan goes to lock and they do this little three-way cycle between them? Like, I just have to see that. I'm not super keen on Hetherington. I don't think his game's very Supercoach friendly, but again, upside is there if, the minutes come. But yeah, man, Carrigan could be very tempting if he gets that front row for sure.
Talk to us, Trav, about these 2RF Broncos players, and there's probably only 2.
It is. To me, it's only the 2. Hetherington is certainly an interest. I'm not interested right now with just what I think is going to play out across the league in terms of cheapy prices and things. If TLT happened and comes about and where we're limited with our rookies and Hetherington's name to start, I think you almost have to. It'd be a must start to have. But I think at this point in time, with what we're hearing, he's not a must have. And I think 12% is quite high owned. So I think that should be a fair bit lower, but can certainly rise depending on what other teams are happening in terms of the Supercoach play come TLT. And Jesse hit the nail on the head in terms of what he has, and in terms of his points a minute. Last year, he played 23 matches, averaged 40. He got 34 points. Like it doesn't scream out greatness. He's not a Carrigan guy, so like he just doesn't play like Carrigan. I just don't think anything. I don't think he even links to anything that Carrigan can do, which is why Carrigan was so good at that spot. Carrigan is a workhorse, right? He's just your awesome, just amazing workhorse. And Carrigan will literally run himself into the ground, right? He'll just run and run. That's why he's such a good leader at that club. That's why they've made him into that sort of position, why he does what he does. And he does so bloody good at it. He's one of the better ones in the competition because of that. And because of just his pure heart and work rate, he gets the points. Now chuck him into a front row forward. I can see upside in terms of at least another 3 to 4, maybe even 5 points on average better. And if Jesse's hopes as well as mine come out that just before the competition starts and he gets his dual FRF, I'm throwing him into the 2RF. And waiting a few weeks, and eventually I'll just trade it. I'll swap him straight into front row forward and bring in a gun 2RF, and that'll save me trades galore and save me a whole heap of headaches that I don't have to worry about. I'm so keen on that. So I think Madge is making a really good choice there, and I'm happy to watch and see how that goes. I'm pretty keen to put him in 2RF if he changes. If he doesn't and doesn't get the duel, am I still interested in Carrigan? I am. What round is it, Jesse? Reminds me that they're going to look at the duels again.
It'd be 6.
Round 6. So like he could be a good trade-in target then. I probably no, because now I'm thinking about the draw. Now I'm looking at the draw. I'm like, if he's going to go, I'm talking myself more. Yeah, I'm talking myself more and more into. Well, no, Origin doesn't bother me at this stage. That's 12 rounds away.
But if you're planning on buying him in round 6, and they've got the buy in round 10 or something like that, I'm not too sure what round their buy is in, and then you've got Origin a few weeks later, you kind of miss that appeal. I really think he does get it from the start. To be fair, like 12, yeah. So it's you're going to lose him for a good chunk of the middle of the season if you're buying him in. So you get him on nice
12,
5-6 weeks out of him tops, and then you've got to lose him for half the season. So like I don't know. I can see the appeal. I like it. I'm looking into Hetherington a little bit more, and I'm starting to think he just screams a bit of trap territory. To be honest with you, I think of all the games that he's played starting lock, there's only been 11. Over the last 3 years prior. I didn't do anything last year, obviously, because Carrigan was everywhere. But he's got a 50-odd minute average game per thing, and he averages about 40, 45. Like, he might make maybe 100K tops, providing he's the same as he was a couple of years ago. There's got to be a big uptick in effort. Offloads, there are none. Tackle bust, there are none. It's just super basic tackles and then pass it on. So there's not a great deal there. I'd really want to see something out of him. But even still, looking at that, he's not for me, actually. Even with that spot, I think the boys are just Carrigan and Haas and forget the rest.
I mean, until one of them gets injured and then someone has to carry the load and then someone else becomes a huge potential. Brendan Pecura was spoken about so highly last year. This time last year, you could not meet someone who didn't have him in their team. I think he's been a little bit forgotten about in a way, because I actually feel like to start the year, seeing that draw is awesome for him. I think having Reynolds and Hunt in the halves is great for their edge as well, because it'll add experience to them both. I mean, it'll help, especially Pecura, who did show glimpses at times that he is that player that people are hyping him up to be. It obviously didn't equivalent in the end to the Supercoach game, and he just very rarely had really great fired up game, so to speak. And I had a few head knocks as well, which didn't help in there. I do like to think with this experienced halves pairing, I feel like we might be able to get a bit more out of Brendan Piakura, especially to start the year. Anyone? Something?
I don't think he's forgotten because I think everyone remembers, and that's why they haven't picked him.
Perfect.
I just can't. I just can't. Nah. What did he do? 65 minutes on average last year. He averaged, and he got 41. Like even with the head knocks, he's still putting up 65 minutes on average. So at 0.6 a minute, I look, as much as probably the appeal of the eye test shows that he's a solid player, I don't think it's resulted in Supercoach. It's an awkward price at 400K. And for that, I don't actually think at 65 minutes is he going to get much more than 40, which means he's not going to really do anything for you. He's just going to plod along. There's other dudes out there that I'm very high on in terms of, you know, your Finafuakis and Horsburghs, your Whites, even Sua Wong. Like there's way too many options there around those prices. Or just go and try and find 60K more and get Gilbert. Like, I think Piakura is an avoid.
Yeah, I think he's a hard avoid as well. Average of base stats, mid-30s, not even that actually last year. So, look, he scored more than 50, 38.1% of the time, more than 60, 14.3. There's no upside there. He just doesn't do it. And the minutes obviously lack a little bit. It's too much headache from last year, too much heartache as well. I think 4% is probably too many. But watch him come out round one and just brain the Roosters, and everyone flocks to him, and then goes back to Piakura of last year. Not for me.
All I'll say is this: do not forget the fact that the Broncos were dog shit last year. People are hyping him up this year, saying they're going to be a much more improved team. That's got to translate all over the park, in my opinion. So I'm not saying he's a must, anything like that. All I'm saying is I have a weird feeling he might become a bit more like I'll say it right now. It would not surprise me by the end of the year he's into the mid 50s as an average. That's what I'll say right now on him.
It would blow my mind if he is.
I think he has he's a young player. He's got some. Had no confidence last year in a team that was absolutely beaten to a pulp by both teams on the field and everyone off the field. He had no confidence. He can certainly play, get his head knocks right, and have a set sort of halve with him that has experience. I can see them being a little bit of sneaky options there. But again, do not start with
mid-50s is an enormous call. Yeah, mid-50s is an enormous call.
That's what I'm here for. Halfback, Kobe Black, 198K. That guy is a freak. Cannot wait to see him finally get a chance because, goodness me, he can play. Jock Madden, 467K, who looked like he had this spot down pat for at least 10 weeks until big signing came along. Adam Reynolds, 500K as well. Looks like he's racing the clock at the moment to even be fit for round one. Already his body's in the wars. For mine, not a single option here is an option. Not interested at all.
Yeah, agreed.
Nope. Yeah, definitely not. Not for me.
5'8". Josh Rogers, 390K. Obviously, he played a few games last year. Bit of a miss to fix it. I don't know if we'll get much of him at all this year. Ezra Mam, 494K. That huge suspension hanging over his head. Still say it. He's lucky to be playing at all this year, in my opinion. Ben Hunt, 5'8" as well. 603K. Again, I just have no interest whatsoever in any of them.
Someone does at 1% on Ezra Mam, so people just need to. Maybe that's just someone's picked him and has forgotten that they've picked him. But
that's an autofill team, that one.
Yeah, so that's a bit odd. But I'm no interest in him. And even when he returns in round 10, do I have any interest? I'm going to sit there and watch him. Ben Hunt at 603K is owned by 4%, so that's a big pod for those people who have got it. I can sort of see it, I think, because they're going to have to rely on him so much. And they're getting him in to try and help Reynolds. And the more that he can help Reynolds, the the hope is that Reynolds survives longer, which so I can kind of see what's happening. I'm not interested at this point in time, and that's expensive for what I know of Ben Hunt, and I need to see Ben Hunt's attitude change, and hopefully that does, because now he's at the Broncos. But I just need to see it, so it's a wait and see for me. But even then, I'm still probably not interested in Ben Hunt.
Yeah, I'm not interested at all in Mam, obviously. When it comes to Ben Hunt, like you look at the 5'8" bracket in general, obviously it's quite thin, but the 600K is kind of where the majority of them sit. I'll call Lockie Galvin at the top tier of that price point because he's 624. You got Cameron Munster at 609, Hunt 603, Dearden 597, Luai 582, Cody Walker 559. There's a lot of options in that price, and Ben Hunt's not really the one that screams out to me. But the draw's
Don't even
nice.
laugh.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. The move to the Broncos has probably been about 3 years overdue. So there's a lot of anticipation around it. I can see him doing well. I don't see any upside in his price. I think you're basically getting him capped. But you're getting a 5'8" that's going to be there for quite a while in that spot. Well, a halfback playing 5'8" essentially. So, I can see it. It's just, yeah, I don't know. There's so many other options. I just went through 6 more players that I'd rather have than him at that same price. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for him.
With his pricing as well, and obviously the last few years, and even last year's 61.6 average, can we not let anyone forget the fact that at the Dragons, it was literally him. It was only him, and it was him setting up tries for Lomax. At the Broncos, there is Reece Walsh, there is Adam Reynolds, there's potentially Blake Moser, depending on what sort of role he gets to play. Then you're thinking of their outside backs, you're thinking of Payne Haas, your Carrigans. There's a lot of players to spread the ball around for, and I just don't think he'll be getting the chances that he was getting at the Dragons, where he's literally the guy. I just think there's too many now to be the guy there at the Broncos and be getting that same average consistently there. Unless Reynolds gets injured, Walsh gets injured, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But until that happens, I just can't see it.
I think him not being that guy might actually benefit him, to be honest with you. You look how good he plays for the Maroons. He's so solid all the time. That's why they keep going back with him, because he's just freaking Mr. Reliable everywhere he is. Maybe he just picks his chances a bit better, and he makes the most out of his runs, because he was obviously the guy. Every single thing the Dragons did for the last however long have been through him. So give him a minute to just compose himself, get it done. I can see it working out for him. I just don't see an increase. I just think his game probably just refines a bit. But last year, 58 average, 55 in 2022, 67, 51, 61, 51. So it's very consistent for him. It's going to be either a 50 or a 60, very far off, not much above, not much below. So yeah, no upside in price, but just a career path.
The St. George Illawarra Hunts, that's basically what they were for so long.
Pretty much.
Centre wings for the Broncos. So we've got young gun Israel Leota, 198K. I wonder if he's related to the Penrith Moses Leota. That'd be pretty cool to find out. Deloise Hoyter, he's a bloody machine. Have you seen some of the photos of him in this preseason? He's, goodness me. 232K. Hayes Perham, 294K. Jesse Arthurs, 341K. Katoni Staggs, 514K. Dean Mariner, 530K. And Selwyn Cobbo, 550K. I don't have any of these in my team. I haven't thought about putting any of these in my team, but am I missing anything here, boys? Is there any options here? The one I've got a little think over is Selwyn Cobbo if he's on the wing. I think if he's on the wing and he's playing wing, there's potential there. But again, like I said to a few of these Broncos players so far, I need to see it first, because I just cannot trust where I feel like Selwyn Cobbo's been the last 12 months. He just plays footy, doesn't want to play footy. It's just, I don't want to deal with that at the moment. One, there's other centre wings in this game that we're playing that seem much safer options.
I'm not keen on any of them, actually. If there was going to be anyone that I'd be keen on, it'd be just going somewhere cheap and getting Jesse Arthurs, and even that I don't like at all, because I did that again. Yeah. But either way, like you talk about Cobbo on the wing, like he's a revelation compared to him at the centres or even fullback. Cobbo on the wing in his 40 games he's ever played, they average 57. Cobbo in the centres, 54, and Cobbo at fullback, 55. So there's no increase. There's no difference. He's just his base
A
is
winger.
always low 20s, which doesn't change no matter what position he plays. The minutes are always the same. He plays 80. He's just from the eye test, he's just lazy. And I don't like that a lot at all. So if I'm going to be going for a lazy winger who just bangs tries, I want more than that. Because there are a fair few of them with really low base. I'd just stick with like a bloody Khan Pereira or something. At least you got something exciting to watch, because I don't like watching the Broncos in general. I don't think the wingers have a great deal of upside. They kind of just finish the opportunities. I like Dean Mariner, to be fair. I think Dean Mariner's got a great game about him, and I like seeing how he just plays in general. But again, not enough for me to want to buy any of them at their prices. There's a lot of options in the 500s. Not one Bronco is on my radar.
Trav, anything different to say?
Nah, not really. I sort of did a bit of a dive onto Jesse Arthurs and thinking around what that is. But, I mean, he's 8% owned at the moment. I guess the only reason why is because they think he's locked that spot, and he's 340, and the Supercoach world is crying out for mid-price or the mid-300 price centers or cheapies altogether. So maybe that's what's happening. But yeah, otherwise I don't really have any interest in any of them. I think Cobbo is what he is, as Jesse said. Mariner, Mariner sort of had a really good year last year. Do I think he's going to keep going? I think what he did last year, he'll probably just make it more consistent this year. So therefore, I think he's probably going to be where he's at. Staggs, I'm not interested. Staggs is one of the best centers in the competition, but in terms of what he does for Supercoach, no. So yeah, I don't have an interest there with the Broncos.
Moving on, fullback, men pictured is big topic here. Bailey True, 198K, no interest there. Won't be getting much game time, if any. Hayes Perham has signed from the Bulldogs, centre wing dual, 294K. And Reece Walsh, 738K. Questions up there about him. Should Walsh be in the fullback conversation when we're talking Supercoach and all these must-have players in this basically three positions when we include flex? I will put my hand up right now. I haven't made one team yet with him in it. The draw potentially is having people start to think a bit more. He's 9% owned, actually, which I actually feel like that's a bit higher than I thought he would have been. I'm surprised it's 9, but again, we looked at the draw earlier where there's potential upside there for an attacking player like Reece Walsh. Can Madge help him? That's probably the next part of that question to get answered. What are we thinking here, Trav? Reece Walsh, you're up on him, or you just haven't gone there?
More and more. I'm seeing more and more teams with him. 9% owned is about where I kind of thought he would be. Am I getting him? Have I had him in my team? No, I haven't. Do I think he's got some relevance? Yes. I think there's improvement this year. I think, but I'm doing a lot of that on the back of Ben Hunt arriving, on the back of Carrigan getting moved into positions, and on the back of the coach and pulling that whole team into line. There is certainly improvement in what Reece Walsh can do. And I think this year is his year to do it. There's little bits of talk around Reynolds not playing. So therefore, who's going to kick? Reece Walsh. And if Reece Walsh is kicking, obviously that adds a hell of a lot more, because the Broncos still score points. So there's still 10 to 12 plus points in kicking that he can add to his score. He averaged 74 points last year in the 14 games that he played. So that's still, really good average. There was that score against Penrith where he played 4 minutes. He got 4. 4 minutes, he got 1. There was the score against the Dolphins that he got 38. And then the rest of them are not atrocious scores. It's 110, a 74, a 51, a 93, a 113, an 82, another 113, a 57, a 78, and an 85. So, they're still pretty good scores. And we talk often about Reece Walsh and his, the differences in what he does high and what he does low, and that there's not really any between. But if you really actually delve into the scores, it's pretty good. I think this year he's going to get more consistent. I think he certainly should be in the conversation. And at 730, I think that's a really nice price. And we're all crying out for that extra 30, 20, 30K in certain spots. How many times have you been caught trying to make a team and you've missed out on someone by 10K and 1K and that sort of thing? Like, I think there's a good opportunity here to talk about him, especially with that early draw, no buy till round 12. Does he play Origin? Well, I think actually Pong is going to get picked for fullback this year. So no, I don't think he does. So yeah, I think he certainly should be in that conversation.
Jesse, you've been big, especially last year on Reece Walsh when it comes to picking the run. That's what you're very big on with him. Are you coming into 2025 the same sort of mindset? And if you are, have you picked out a run that you're looking at?
I always tend to look at Reece Walsh for the run. Yeah, I kind of pick his price and go, yep, I'm happy at this price to get him in. I'm not super worried about his low scores if there is one, because he can go boom, and you see it. Those games where he goes big, he goes nuts. To be fair, he does everything, but in those massive games, he ends on 100, where you grab anyone else and they're on 140, 50, that kind of thing. So his base is incredibly low. It's really bad actually. I'm just going to take that one game, that 4-pointer off the Penrith game, and you look at his average, it jumps all the way up to 81.2. So he's like heavily underpriced for the season based off one bad game when you take that out. So providing he gets the kicking while Reynolds is out, there's obviously upside there for him. Relatively consistent, but very heavy in attack at the same time. The ceiling's not there because his base is so low. He's really got to work hard to get that 90 point. His base last year without that 1 point game was 19.5. So there's nothing. There's no base for Reece Walsh. That's not about him. So he's all about the attack, which, when he's on, he's definitely on for it. So I like his price. 738K, he's definitely got to be in the discussion because he's cheaper than everyone else. Really below him, you got Pap and Hammer. I don't think there's too many other options, and Keeney as well. So there's a few, but, Reece Walsh sort of has a different thing about him compared to the other boys at the moment. So you get the star power with him, and 738, like he was a lot dearer last year. Obviously, had a bit better a year. So I like it for, what's that, 30K more. You got Drinkwater, 50K more. You got Ponga. That's where I kind of put into the starting time. I was just like, ugh. I like the other guys more, and they are going to be kicking. We're speculating Walsh gets the kicking and holds onto it for some period of time, where there's guys slightly dearer that can probably, keep it going. Because a lot of these games of his score last year were with kicking points too. So take that out of it. Yeah, he probably drops even further. So I will look at him at some point in the year, but it's very dependent on if I need a fullback and if he's priced well. Otherwise, I don't really look into the Walsh direction at all.
So I'll ask you both just the question on the screen. Should Walsh be in the fullback conversation? I'm going to say no. I think you've just raised a number of points there, Jesse, why I'm much rather about 4 or 5 other fullbacks. So for mine, Walsh isn't in the conversation as that top echelon fullback in Supercoach.
Trav?
Oh, I think I said when I spoke, I think he should be. Yeah, I think there's upside there. I think there's improvement there. I think obviously the list is better. I think the coach is going to make it better. I reckon, preseason with the coach and, even some of the off-field things, I reckon the club's turned around and probably put a bit of pressure on them. So, well, I'm hoping they have. So I think there's a fair few changes. I certainly see upside for Walsh and think that there's a really good case for him to be put in that conversation and even played. And I think he'd be a really good pod play to start off the year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to put him in the discussion based off the fact that without that game against Penrith, he's already about 80K underpriced. He probably will kick. His run is great. His ownership is much lower than the other guys at the moment. You have to consider him. Like, you really do have to consider it. If you're stretched thin, if you're looking for 3 fullbacks, especially in your flex, Walsh is at a good price. Or even if you were going 2 and a gun and then you wanted to stack the halves or something, I think it really just comes down to the build out of your team. Because, the discount, the 30, 40K here and there doesn't sound like a lot when you compare him to Drinkwater and Ponga for a bit dearer. But God, it makes a massive difference if it's the last player that you need to fill your side between getting 2 guns. So I think you consider it. I think you just approach with caution. You kind of know that things can go south a little bit for him. But yeah, looking off last year's numbers, like, if you're going to take a 50 as your worst score, there's some big boys that scored 52. So Yeah.
It's just
In the
that sentence
discussion,
that
but
you said where he just needs to work so hard to get those points. And even so, like when he's worked his butt off for a game, you go, yep, sweet, I've got him. This is going to be a monster. Let me look at the app, and it's a 90. Where if it's Turbo, if it's Teddy, if it's Drinky, if it's Ponga, it's 150. And they've done it with ease. It's for mine, I just can't put Walsh in that category when he hasn't done that yet. He hasn't with ease got to a 150 like some of these other elite, in my opinion, has got to. So I just can't put him in there. It's too much hope and hoping he can do this and that, where the others have done it, and they've done it time and time again.
yeah, I'm going for the proving guns every time.